Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am back from vacation. I was away for 2.5 weeks. I was able to film some videos in advance, so you may not have noticed a gap, but this is my first video since coming home yesterday, and I'm a little bit rusty, but I wanted to talk to you guys all about our trip, what we did, who we saw, where we went, and also playing with this eyeshadow palette from BH Cosmetics. This is the Cotton Candy palette. A friend is letting me borrow it, and I was excited to play with some of the colors. If you're interested in seeing how I did this eye look and hearing about our trip, don't go anywhere. If you're new to my channel, hi. My name is Rachel. I'm a homeschooling stay-at-home mom. I love to play with colorful eyeshadow, and I upload about 3 videos a week, all eyeshadow related content, so perhaps you'd like to consider liking and subscribing. Now, without further ado, let's get going because I've got a lot to say. Alright guys, so for today's look, I'm going to be using the Cotton Candy palette from BH Cosmetics Sweet Shop series. This palette does not belong to me. A friend of mine was kind enough to let me borrow it so that I could play with it and decide if I actually wanted to buy it myself. So I'm going to be dipping into, I think, these 2 colors and this one right here. I have a lot of blue on today. I've got a blue shirt with blue jeans, and I don't really want to do a lot of blue in my look. But then blue and purple are the standard go-to, and I thought this would be a nice blend of bluish, pinkish, purpley tones. You know, sort of touch on all 3, but not too much of anything. And I feel like these are the most unique colors that I can't easily find elsewhere in my collection, and probably this one as well. So those are the ones I want to play with and see how they look on the eyes. First, I'm going to prime my eyes. I use the Glam Light Icing Primer in the shade White Frosting. And I don't know if you were aware. If you're new here, then you probably don't know. I just came back from vacation. This is actually my first video filming after vacation. We got back in town yesterday. But anyway, this being my first video since vacation, I did bring some eyeshadow stuff with me, but it's interesting to me. I didn't actually use it very much. Like, I love to play with colorful eyeshadow, but I discovered while I was away that it is very much a part of my regular day-to-day, like my ordinary routine. You know, it's a little bit of a side hobby that I like to do as a creative release in my regular day-to-day life. So when I was out on vacation and traveling and seeing people, I brought 4 palettes with me, but I found that I didn't really do eyeshadow. I think I did it 3 times while I was away for 2.5 weeks. And I found that to be really interesting, that despite how much I like to play with eyeshadow, when I was out of my, I won't say out of my element, because the places we went were, you know, lots of family homes and stuff, so I felt very comfortable there. But I just didn't feel, I don't know, maybe it was, I just didn't feel the need to have that release, because it wasn't the mundane activities of life like doing dishes and folding laundry. And eyeshadow is this creative outlet for me, this little pocket of colorful fun that I get to play with, but I didn't really need that when I was on vacation, or at least away from home. So I thought that was quite an interesting discovery. I am quite out of practice. I feel like I'm out of practice. You'll have to give me some patience if this video is a little bit messy and choppy, because I have to get back into the swing of things. Based on the colors I'm going to be using today, I don't think this is going to be a terribly dark look. Honestly, this palette doesn't have any really deep colors. The darkest is probably this one, and I am planning on using it, so I'm curious to see how it's going to look. Anyway, I'm going to start with a pretty good sized blending brush and grab the shade Confection. And I'm going to throw this as a transition color, so I'll start it in like the socket of my eye and the crease, always starting in the outer corner and blending in towards the bridge of the nose. So let me tell you about my trip. The plan for the trip was, we left our home, we drove and got a hotel about, I think it was about 8.5 hours away from our home. Then we drove the next day. What was supposed to be around 10 hours ended up being 13, because there was a rollover on the interstate. It was a tractor trailer rollover, and hopefully the guy was okay. I actually never found out, but the rollover caused backed up traffic for about 20 miles. Like, it was stopped. We went 6 miles in 3.5 hours. I could actually walk faster than we were driving. In fact, at one point, my older daughter and I got out of the van and did walk along the side. We were on like a little bridge that crossed over a small brook. And so we got out of the van and went and looked at the water for a while, because it was a lot more interesting than sitting in the van any longer. That was our second night at our friend's house. And then we drove about an hour and a half the following day to get to our final destination, where my husband's orientation was for seminary. This is such a pretty color. This is like it's actually quite true to the pan color. It's kind of a bubblegummy sort of lavender. It's definitely pink, but it's got purple in it. And it has a nice soft wash. I think that I could probably recreate this color using Something from the Lilac You a Lot palette from ColourPop. I do really like it though, it's really nice. I think I'm going to do the other eye, which I don't usually do in my videos, but I suspect this video is going to be a bit longer because I've got chatty things to say. And so I'll just work on the other eye while we're here. So anyway, once we got to the location of his school, we were in a hotel. He had orientation the whole next day. And then there was a dinner in the evening for the families. And then the following day began the weekend, and there was a picnic around, I think it started at 10 or 11 a.m. So we went to the picnic, and we hung out and fellowshipped and met with other students, some of whom were going to be going to school live. And then other students were international and they had come just for the orientation. There was a guy from China, there was a guy from India, there was a man from Africa? I forget, like international students. They had just come for orientation and were going to head back home. So my husband was able to meet with several other distance students and just kind of meet people and get to know people a little bit. And we had lunch, and then immediately after lunch, we started driving again. So we drove about 9 hours up to my sister-in-law's house, and we spent the night there, and in the morning we surprised her children, and that was a lot of fun. My younger nieces, actually, out of all the nieces and nephews, they're the oldest ones. They were very excited to see us, especially my daughter, my older daughter. So that was a lot of fun. We got to be a surprise for the kids, and we had breakfast with them and went to church with them. And then after lunch, we drove another 2 hours to my in-laws' house, and we actually settled there for the majority of the week. Now I want to take a denser and smaller blending brush. I would like to grab the shade Sugar Plum. This is that dark bluish purple shade that I pointed out, and it's kind of the darkest shade in the palette. There are two. This is the more blue side, and then there's one that's more fuchsia. I want this one. So here's the shade Sugar Plum, and I'm going to place that in the outer corner. So we got to my in-laws' house, and we stayed there for the week. Now, this was the week leading up to my sister-in-law's wedding. She's the youngest of their children, and so it was nice to be there, but it was also a lot of wedding prep. Most of my week was just working on wedding stuff, which was okay. I really didn't mind helping. I mean, that's how we do it in our family. We don't usually hire out all the different things. Most of it's just done by us. And like, that's how we did it for my wedding, and other people helped me, and I was completely happy to help with the wedding. In fact, I was glad that we arrived in enough time to help. One of those days, we traveled 45 minutes south of where my in-laws live, and we visited with my parents. And then my mom, who is much more okay with people. My dad is a little bit more of a hermit. My mom is more comfortable with other people around. So she actually packed a bag and drove up to stay at my in-laws' house with us. My in-laws are very, very welcoming and inviting people. So they were like, have your mom come up. So she did. She packed a bag and came up and stayed at the house with us so that we could get more time together. And she helped with the wedding stuff too, which was really nice because she's a creative person. And so it was really helpful to be like, all right, what should we do here? What do you think? How do you think this should be laid out? You know, the seating chart and things like that. And my mother-in-law had us baking desserts. We made a couple hundred cupcakes and lots of cookie dough balls and cookies. And that was funny because, again, neither of us minded helping at all, but my mom does not like to cook, and particularly bake. So it was very funny that my mother-in-law, who can be rather a persuasive woman, was like, come on, you can help us make cupcakes and cookies. And my mom's like, I mean, I'll help. I'm not gonna like it, but like, don't get me wrong, she was happy to help, but she didn't like the actual, like, she was making shortbread cookies, and she was like, now I know why I don't make cookies. But she was a super good sport, and we got all the desserts made, really, all the desserts for the wedding. We made gluten-free shortbread cookies, regular shortbread cookies, then we made a bunch of cupcakes and frosted them with buttercream, and then, what else did we make? We made four different kinds of cookie dough balls, plus another kind that was gluten-free. My mother-in-law made the wedding cake. It was just a couple of 8-inch rounds with frosting, and we decorated it with flowers and, you know, drizzled chocolate and stuff. But that was the wedding cake, so it wasn't big enough to share with the whole reception. It was just for them. So everyone else at the reception got other desserts. And then they did have a caterer for the meal, and the caterer brought ice cream. So there were, I don't know, maybe 6 different kinds of ice cream at the wedding with toppings, so that was fun. Anyway, we did a lot of wedding prep in the week leading up to the wedding, obviously. Did that need to be said? We'll throw some of this color on this side over here. These are really pretty colors. I'm very much liking them. And of course, the palette is performing beautifully because this is the Sweet Shop series, and apparently they're all awesome. This is the fourth one that I've tried out of 6. I assume that the other 2 are just as great. So let's see what happened after that. Well, after that, of course, was the wedding weekend. So we drove 3 hours to the wedding weekend. The first evening we had the rehearsal and then the rehearsal dinner. After the rehearsal dinner, we went to the venue, which we weren't allowed to get to the venue before everything, so we had to do it afterwards. We went to the venue and we started setting up the venue. So it was everything. Like, we got there and it was just an empty pavilion. So we set up all the tables and chairs. We set the tables. We brought down the sides of the pavilion so that wind didn't blow things away. We put all the centerpieces out, which was another thing that my mother-in-law and I had worked on leading up to the wedding, was table centerpieces, place cards, the seating chart. Then other family arrived, and as we were setting up the tables and laying out all the silverware and the dishware and stuff, they started to do like strings of lights hanging from the beams of the pavilion, and they decorated an arbor where they were going to be getting married. It was all very lovely. My sister-in-law, the bride, she had bought a bunch of wooden flowers. They were really, really delicate. Like, they were made out of a wood that was even thinner and softer than balsa wood. So if you could actually squash these wooden flowers, like you could accidentally smush them somehow. But they were really delicate, and she found a way through helping a different friend with a wedding. She had learned how to dye them. So she dyed various flowers, these beautiful, soft, pinky, rosy sorts of colors, which were a little bit summery, springy, but they were also a bit fall. They were like a nice cross between the 2 seasons, which was perfect for a end of August wedding. And it was lovely. They were really pretty. I very much liked those flowers. In fact, I'm considering looking into them myself to see if I could do some. For decor around my home. They were really pretty. So she used those flowers. She had a lot of them. And she used them for all the centerpieces, all of the other decor, like they had this big tulle ribbony thing that they decorated with all the flowers and baby's breath and lights and stuff. And they had put that up on the arbor. Those were the wooden flowers. She used the wooden flowers also for the boutonnieres and the corsages and the bridesmaids' bouquets, and she had a bunch of junior bridesmaids who also got their own little bouquet, and those were wooden flowers too. Her bouquet, of course, and also we had some extra flowers that we used to decorate the bride and groom's cake. So it was nice. And after several hours of working to set up, we finally took the girls, who were being great sports, and we went back to the hotel and got some sleep. Next morning was wedding day. We went to church in the morning, and then after church we headed right to the venue where people were starting to get ready. The setup was pretty much done at that point except for a few things, and so people were actually getting ready, getting dressed, doing hair and makeup and all that stuff. Yeah, so the wedding was beautiful. We got some really good family pictures, which is more than I can say for my own wedding, because on my wedding our family pictures were so awkward. Particularly my family. My husband's family is more photogenic. My family pictures were so awkward because our photographer didn't style us. He didn't pose us. He's just like, all right, get together. I want these particular people and we'll take a picture. But my family doesn't really do pictures. I can think of like 4 times in our entire lives where we did a family picture, and it was a, Walmart photo. And so our family was like, my husband and I, bride and groom, and then my 2 siblings and my parents, and we're all sort of facing different directions, and it's just, they're a little awkward. I'm like, why didn't we should have hired a better photographer maybe, who was like, no, you face this way and then turn, pivot a little bit and smile more and center, and this person's taller and that person's shorter. None of that. No, we just gathered into a clump and smiled at the camera, and we're all like angled in different ways. Anyway, she got some really great family pictures. I want to do the lower lash line. I'm going to take a smaller and pinch blending brush. I actually want to take the shade Carnival, which is a pink matte. And I think I'm just going to throw that on the lower lash line, starting in the outer corner, and see how it looks, and then go from there. So the wedding was nice. Then we had the reception. The reception was nice. After the wedding weekend, we drove to my sister-in-law's house, the one where we stayed the first time we came into the state and surprised her kids. We went back to her house and stayed for the week. Really, really close to that sister-in-law, so it was lovely to spend some time in her home with her family and, have good evening chats and whatnot. And I think I'm bringing it to about here. I think I'll leave the inner corner open for a shimmer. So we spent the whole week there, and that week was more relaxing than the first week because it was post-wedding, so there was no wedding prep. It was just, let's sit and relax. And that is the town where we lived before we moved out of state. So we still had some friends over there as well. We got to have dinner with a couple of them. And then my family had planned this glamping weekend. I won't say it's camping because literally people would show up to my sister-in-law's house. She has a large property. And they all wanted, like, what we used to do was rent out a very large house because we're a big family. There are more than 30 of us. Just my in-laws and their children and spouses and grandchildren, there were over 30 of us. So we used to rent out this big house and have a nice family weekend together. But the house that we rented is no longer available, and it's pretty hard to find a single home with that much space. So my brother-in-law was like, well, hey, I've got this big property. How about everybody comes here with tents and coolers and stuff? You can set up in my backyard. He didn't really want people trekking in and out and like making the house dirty, and all those people inside a house could be a lot. Especially because his house is not that big. You know, it's not big enough for a 30-person family. But they have a good-sized property, and so they decided to do like a camping weekend, which was fun. So people brought tents and coolers. Every family packed food for themselves. There were grills. We brought tables and picnic tables and stuff, and just had this camping weekend in their backyard. But their backyard is really good sized, and they've got a pool and a hot tub. It was actually a lot of fun. I was a little nervous going into it because I was feeling overwhelmed with the whole trip, plus orientation for school, plus the wedding. And then this was sort of on top of it. And it was at the tail end of the trip, right before we needed to get all packed up to head back home. And I was almost crying in the grocery store when we were buying our food because I'm like, everything that we need for this weekend is borrowed. We don't have a tent. We didn't bring a tent. Our van was full. So we borrowed a tent. We had a cooler. But we borrowed almost everything. Somebody gave us an air mattress to use. I'm not complaining. It was very kind. Everybody was really generous. And I'm not surprised by that either. It was kind of a lot. It felt like a lot for me. Anyway, so we had this glamping weekend, and it was quite nice. The second day was more relaxing than the first because the first day was when everyone was arriving, and we had been in the house for the majority of that day before people came because it was leading into the weekend. And then it's like, all right, you need to be out of the house by this time. So that was a matter of getting repacked, putting everything back in our suitcases, making sure the laundry was washed, etc., and then going outside and setting up a tent. And then being outside until we drove home. Whew. They also had an outdoor shower. They had everything you'd want. I don't know. It felt like a lot leading into it, but then the first full day of the weekend, I was able to just sit by the pool, watch the kids play, chat with my in-laws, and just relax. And that was nice. That was nice. I feel like this is going on forever. I know I'm talking a lot, and that's why I'm doing both eyes. I'm sorry if I'm rambling. I don't intend to ramble. I'm going to grab a shimmer, and yeah, I'm going to grab a shimmer. I want to take a flat C or shader brush. I do want to play with this shimmer called Swirl. It's a beautiful rosy sort of color, a dark rosy pink. And I'm going to spray it, and I'm going to start this out here. We're at the darker matte and sort of work it in and see how much of the lid space I want to take up. So we had our glamping weekend. I'm just trying to move through now because I don't want to talk forever. We had our glamping weekend, and it was quite nice. The next morning we woke up and we got all packed and had breakfast, prayed with the family, and then we headed out. This is a pretty color. I actually think that I want to bring it up a little bit. Instead of stopping it at my crease, I'm going to bring it up a little bit to this area. Just to give it a little extra sparkle when my eye is open. So then it was the drive home. And the drive home, we decided, we thought about taking a more scenic route, but that would have added time. We're like, you know what, we just want to be home. We're tired of traveling and being away. Let's go home. So we took the most direct route and hit almost no traffic. We broke it up into 2 days of about 8 to 9 hours. 8 to 9 hours each day. Got a hotel around halfway through and arrived home yesterday about 5 p.m. We picked up the dog from the border on the way, so we got home around 5. Yeah, I'm tired just talking about my trip. Now I'm going to take the same brush. I'm not going to bother color switching it because I'm just going right into the shade Sugar. I'm going to put it on dry and see how it looks. So, all said and done, I calculated. It's not exact because I didn't go, address to address. I just went from city to city. But it was over 3,100 miles in the car with 2 kids. I have to say, the girls did amazing. Our baby girl, she, you're always a little bit more nervous about the baby because, you know, they can't read a book while you drive. And they don't understand why they're still strapped in this annoying seat. And she was great. She's such a little trooper. Pretty much she was happy most of the time if there was food either recently given or soon to be given or being given. She was happy if there was food. So we had a lot of snacks with us, and a good supply of goldfish went in her direction. She was great. And when she would get a little fussy, our older daughter was usually able to calm her down. Our older daughter was very, very helpful. She was quite mature, and there were a few times where she's like, oh, can we please stop, as far as the baby fussing. But she was a really good sport and very helpful the whole way, really. Okay, look at this. This is sort of like lavender shimmer, and then pinky shimmer, and then this bluey sort of outer corner. It's cute. I think I want to bring the lavender shimmer over a little bit more. So I'm kind of going on top of the pink shimmer just to make it a little bit lighter here at the inner corner, because that's my personal preference. Anyway, and then our older daughter, she had brought a whole bag of things, books and Barbies and games and poppets. Poppets. Your kids play with poppets? I will not spend money on poppets. I refuse to spend money on poppets. She's got several, which were given to her, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. You can have a few. We're not gonna have this huge collection of them. You can have 4 or 5, but I'm not spending money on poppets. So she does have a few that people have given her, and that's fine. And so when she brings them in the car, actually the baby likes to play with them because they're colorful and they're soft and she can do it, you know, and she totally gets it. She knows exactly what to do with a poppet, which is funny. So my daughter had this bag of toys that she'd brought, and they kept her pretty busy. She read Calvin and Hobbes a lot. I love Calvin and Hobbes. So she had things to do, and when the baby would get fussy, she would be helpful and, you know, here, have your pacifier, or do you want a snack, or do you want to play with a poppet? Or she would play peekaboo off the side of the car seat with a stuffed animal or something. And it was good. So the kids did great. They really did great. They're both still sleeping now. Got home yesterday, we had supper, went to the neighbor who had been getting our mail, and that's that. That's all she wrote. So today it's going to be unpacking, trying to get back into routine. It was a nice trip. It was really nice to go out and see everyone. I'm very glad that we made the wedding. There's actually another family wedding in 2 weeks, which we are not going to be at. So I'm bummed that we're going to miss that one, but I'm grateful that we could at least make one. And it was a nice trip, but it's good to be home. I'm going to choose a waterline color, finish this up. I have been talking for plenty of time. You guys are probably like, is this video over yet? If you've even stayed this long. And I'll be back to show you how the look turns out. Okay guys, here's the finished look. I used a white eyeliner for the waterline just because I thought that there was already enough bluish, pinky, purple sorts of tones, and I didn't want to add in any more. It's a little bit, I won't say monochromatic because there are distinct different colors, but it's not very exciting. I do think it's pretty. It's just not super exciting. So I just used white because I wanted to make that waterline pop and not bring in more color to the look. And then on my lips, I'm wearing just one swipe of this lip shimmer from Burt's Bees in the shade Grapefruit. And I did I say I did a winged eyeliner? I did a winged eyeliner and some mascara, and that's everything. So I appreciate you so much. If you have stuck through to the end of this video, you're awesome. And I really didn't expect it to be this long, but I thought it might be longer. That's why I did both eyes during the video. But I really wanted to just chat about our trip because it was long and there was a lot going on. And it was just lovely to see everyone. I'm very glad to be home, to get back into our routine. We're starting school again. Actually, we started school right before we left for the trip. So my daughter did some school on the way. The baby's waking up. I'm sure you can hear her on the monitor. Anyway, if you stuck through to the end of this video, thank you so much. A little teaser, I've got some news coming in the next video that I make, and you may have noticed I mentioned that a couple videos ago. I said I'd be coming back with some news. So I will disclose what that is in the next video, and you get to know about that in advance if you actually stayed through this long. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you so much for clicking on my channel. I hope you like the video. I hope you like the eye look. Remember that I upload several videos a week. I'm getting back into my routine now that we're home. Everything is eyeshadow related, so maybe you'd like to like and subscribe, and until I see you in my next video, I hope that you have a really great day. Bye.